Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the Critérium du Dauphiné Stage 2 recap from Saint-Péray to Brive-Charensac, 170 k's long. Similar stage with similar problems for some of the teams as yesterday, with a 10 kilometre 5% climb, 60 k's in, then a valley, then the Col de Vialatte, 11.5 k's, 4%. But I think it's actually longer than that. The KOM point is 2/3 the way up the climb. I think it's like 15 Ks. Then a sort of rolling ridge line or up in the before they descend to the valley. Then a punchy 1K 5%, 1K 5% again back to back with 10 Ks to go after a quick descent. Then a sprint finish. Well, maybe a sprint finish. It's just a difficult stage where you got climbs. It's hard for Groenewegen, who struggled yesterday, and we don't have many pure sprinters here. And Bauhaus, I think, is probably sick. He abandoned today. But before we get into the action, the breakaway, you mentioned our show partner, Zwift. Zwift has 11 worlds, over 140 routes for you to go solo on or meet up with real friends with virtual meetups, making the rides more fun. You can create a meetup to get up and riding with people from all over the world, jet to the desert, climb a volcano, escape to the futuristic New York City. So many routes are yours to explore all on your own, all the time. So if you want to check out Zwift, it's a free 7-day trial at Zwift.com. But we had a break, Benji. Not very well represented. A lot of the teams, like it was the French teams again, but yeah, like no Trek again.
Yeah, once again, and it's quite riders that are actually doing relatively well this year. For example, Vialatte has been off the screen for quite a bit, but this year, I swear I've seen him in multiple races actually doing something very strong, and therefore we knew that he's got a bit of an engine in that breakaway. Under the Scarset from UNOX, he's I think he got third in like a Croatia stage last year. Villemot also in the breakaway. He has been riding strongly in Asturias this year, got fourth and third on 2 stages there, and I think some pretty decent results in Alps and Maritime de Var at the start of the season as well. De La Place in the breakaway, winner of Paris Camembert this year, and Kevin Vermaake. I vaguely remember this guy because in 2018 or 2019, this man was coming up with LBL U23 as one of the races that he won, and then it kind of didn't go as planned anymore. And yeah, he's kind of been looking for that form ever since. But at the start of the season at Oman, he was pretty strong on Jabal Al-Aghdar and so forth. But hey, those were the riders in the breakaway today. And when it comes to the peloton, I was curious who's going to be pacing, because yesterday we spoke about it. Is Ineos going to go all in for Hayter once again, knowing that he lost from Van Aert? Is Van Aert going to have his team do something, knowing that they've got Roglic and so forth in the squad? Is Trek going to try again with Stuyven? Like, all these questions to be made, and whether Groenewegen was going to survive and whether Bex was going to control the breakaway once again. But what was your take on the breakaway chase today?
Well, like yesterday, I mean, he's here now, so you have to do something on this stage for Groenewegen. So Bike Exchange were keeping the gap close to the break because you don't want a furious pace over that long climb. He was dropped pretty shortly, and it was another bad day for Bike Exchange. And those domestiques pacing once again. He lost minutes on the climb. So Groenewegen out, Bauhaus abandoned, as I said. So it's really the sprinters we have on offer. And Jumbo clearly don't care that much about the stage. At least they didn't for the most part of the stage. They just offered Harper to help. I do think we'll talk about how this impacts their tour, what happens in this stage at the end of the recap. But yeah, not having Dennis and having Harper there, I think does make a big difference in terms of flat firepower for Jumbo-Visma. But yeah, they were pulling, and it was Trek once again, who, as I said, like they got Bernard, they got Ellison, they got these other riders. And Stuyven had the interview before the stage saying they wouldn't really try again the way they did yesterday, and then they lit up their last climb again, right?
Yeah, they did, but I think the aspect that I see to it is that I personally, when it comes to Stuyven, I don't expect him to win a sprint like this. I don't expect him to do great at a reduced sprint like this. So the only option I see is that they spend their energy to try and reduce the domestiques of other teams, to try and make a situation where Stuyven can attack in the final last kilometer from the peloton. That's the only situation in which I see Stuyven do something for a victory in a stage like this. Does that make sense? Because, like, I swear in, like, reduced sprints, I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, what the plan is there. And I've already said free Skirns. It's not really gaining much traction, that movement. Um, but I'm trying my best to free him. And Kenny actually, and Bernard, like, they were really good in the Ventoux stage last year with Mollema. Wow, it was just better. Anyway, it wasn't a great stage in the end. Bit of a mess. Ineos, I think, they started pacing this descent. The gap went from 130 to 110 to the breakaway with Delaplace, Vermaker, Viermer, Skarseth, Lagac, just to remind you of who was in there. And Ineos pacing the descent. They get to the flatter section with the rolling hills, and Jumbo haven't offered Benoit or Laporte yet, just Kruijswijk and a tired Harper. And I think Ineos were like, fuck you. Like, no, we're not doing yesterday again. We're not pacing all the finish again. Trek paced with Skirns a little bit, but Ineos did not send forward. If I'm wrong, forgive me. They did not send forward Kwiatkowski or Dunbar to pace. They did use De Plus, they did use Amador, but they didn't use Kwiatkowski or Dunbar. And it's kind of it's a numbers game. Jumbo sent forward 2, Kruijswijk and Harper, and so Ineos are like, we're not giving you more than 2. And then it's a stalemate, and then the break's not being brought back, and so it's like 6Ks to go, 35 seconds, and Trek are done. They just don't have the firepower, and the break's working together really well, like the whole time. They all know they got to go to the line, and Ineos stop, and then Jumbo all of a sudden go from they're like, call our bluff, we don't care about the stage, to panic pulling with Benoit on the front, with even Roglic taking a pull, it seemed. Now, he might have I was like, are they just doing this for the 3-kilometer zone to keep Roglic safe? But it seemed like 5Ks to go, panic stations, maybe a call on the road to go for the stage. I don't know. I'm trying to read it. It's like mixed messages, and it was too late. If they started 500 meters earlier with Benoit, if they started without panicking, just 3-4Ks earlier, sending Benoit and Laporte to just contribute to the pacing of Kruijswijk instead, Wout van Aert wins this stage. But instead, we had the breakaway going clear. Very, very weird. Vermaak went on the front with like 600 meters to go. They start finessing. Delaplace, archaic guy, starts to sprint with 400. Then Lagac starts to sprint with 300, gets a big gap on Viermo, and he gets reeled in with about 50 meters to go. Skarseth, the UNOX Norwegians, on Viermo's wheel, but can't come around him. So that goes to Alexis Viermo, the 34-year-old, 9 wins on his career. His last World Tour win was in the Tour de France Stage 8 in 2015.
Britannia?
Yeah, Britannia. What the fuck?
I think back in the day, he attacked early, and the group
That's
of
right.
GC riders was looking at each other, and therefore he got the benefit there, but he was also a pretty good puncher back then. But wonderful win by Viermo, to be honest, another World Tour win, which is not easy to grab. Yes, the peloton miscalculated, as in multiple teams tried their tactics, and some of them weren't that intriguing to my personal opinion. For example, let's talk about the Jumbo factor there. I feel like you either have to choose between taking it up earlier or not taking it up at all and just bluffing the entire way through, because it's on paper only the Dauphiné, if it makes sense like that. But never in hell should there be a situation where Roglic is pulling for Wout van Aert like this, especially in, like, even in the Dauphiné, like, when, like, so close to the Tour de France. Roglic shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and by early, well, I don't think we mean taking it up with 150 Ks to go.
Yeah.
Like, the other teams still, Bike Exchange did the pacing at the start of the stage. We mean, if you want to win the stage with Wout, and this is going for if you wanted to get the green, if the stage is bookmarked for Wout in the Tour, and the other teams are calling your bluff, and you do really want to win it, particularly when you won the stage yesterday, you have to send forward more riders earlier to pace. And then Ganna will pull later, and that will probably help you take another 5-10 seconds, which he did do in the last kilometer. But yeah, it's tricky. Yes, no Dennis. I think it makes a big difference. Are the teams smaller here?
One rider less per team.
One rider less per team. It does make a difference, not having Dennis, not having another engine.
I do want to add that When it comes to the parkour of the stage, yesterday we mentioned that it looked like the parkour where a peloton can miscalculate the breakaway. The factor that we've got that tiny descent towards the line, that rather larger descent earlier, so that if riders in the breakaway keep at least a number of energy left for that final to kick it up a notch, then it's going to be troublesome for the peloton. And I think that combined with what was happening in the peloton led to this breakaway winning. Because on paper, this is a decent breakaway, but not an outrageous one. This is not Magnus Cort Nielsen and so forth in the breakaway, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, that Giro breakaway with Affini, De Bont, and Magnus Cort was ridiculous. And this is actually the second time this year Total Energies rider has nicked a World Tour win in France from Jumbo, although Pedersen beat Wout van Aert in the sprint in Paris Stage 6 when Bergado attacked late on that climb and no one could bring him back, and there was a bit of finessing there. I think if you're Ineos, Benji, you successfully called Jumbo's bluff because now you know actually they will pull. They will. That's why I sort of, if Jumbo were playing it cool, we don't care about the stage, we don't care about the jersey. Maybe they were trying to give the jersey away. I don't know. Is it that much of a big deal to have Wout in the jersey tomorrow? Maybe, I guess. And now Ineos will be thinking they will pull. So we will definitely be calling your number and bluff again. But yeah, I think we knew this sort of thing would happen. It happened in the Critérium du Dauphiné last year. That time it was Colbrelli who missed out on like 3 stage wins with the smaller teams, and poor Santiago Trago couldn't bring back Postelberger, it was, on stage 2. So yeah, any last thoughts from this stage, Benji? I'll just check. GC Viermo goes into the leader's jersey. He is 5 seconds ahead of Wout van Aert. So Wout's on 5 seconds and Hayes on 9, and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that'll be nice for Total to have that jersey.
Yes, certainly a wonderful thing for them to have that jersey. I think it was a similar stage to yesterday, but this time around the breakaway ended up making it to the line because it was a stronger breakaway and because the peloton's chasing tactics were not on point enough to catch them. But hey, that's honestly all I can say about this stage, to be honest. Not that much happened in it, and I feel like the only thing I was kind of not intrigued by, a bit like surprised by, is Roglic just pulling. I can't wrap my head around Roglic pulling in that.
He didn't pull for that long, I don't think.
Yeah, but like he moved to the front and pulled for a bit and went back. Like, I don't see that as a good choice.
I wouldn't have minded if they full committed to it. Imagine if they went TTT 10Ks to go and he was like doing the Wiggins lead out for Cav on the tour. That would be good for morale ahead of the tour.
I think with about 10-ish kilometers to go, less than 10 kilometers to go, they were on the top of the last climb of the stage, that tiny climb, and they had like 6 riders of Jumbo at the front, and they had basically Ineos sitting with 1 domestique left ahead of Hayter, or whoever it was from their team. Gegenhard might have been there with Hayter, I don't even know. But I saw 2 Ineos people there, 2 Bahrain people there near the front, and like 6 Jumbo people. If a Jumbo rider attacks there, like, what happens? Is that too meme attacky for your taste? Let's say Roglic attacks there, Parini style.
Kwiato gets him. I'm back in on Kwiatkowski. He's an animal. Tomorrow's stage, speaking of Jumbo-Visma and very difficult decisions to be made by them, 170 k's from Saint-Paulien to Chastres-Sancy, 170 k's, as I said, again, same as today. And it is not a sprint stage. There's some medium mountain climbs like 3.5k, 6%, a valley, a stepped shallow gradient climb as they get up to this sort of plateau around, I don't know where this is, in the Rhone region of France. Some more rolling climbs, and then what will surely be an uphill sprint finish. 6.2 Ks, 5.6%. But here's the kicker. You're like, everyone's saying Roglic, right? Everyone's right now, it's just saying, okay, it's Roglic. Easy dub. He won a 2K 6% finish against Laporte in Paris last year to Cherub. And this is 6Ks, 5.5%, 6%. The problem for him is, well, it's not really a problem. It's a good problem to have. The first 5Ks are actually 7%. And the last K is 1% with a little kicker in the last 100 meters, I actually don't know how to play this stage. Is it Wout or Roglic?
Looking at the final climb, I dare to say that if that final climb is really as like relatively flat compared to the rest of the climb that the profile is telling us, then I'd argue the finish itself fits Wout more, the sprint finish. But he'll have to get over the climb at perfectly then to make that happen. And looking at the other riders like a Hater and Zafov, that finish would fit him as well after a climb with a sprinty finish like that. We've seen that on the flatter sprint yesterday that Van Aert beat Hater, but is that going to be the same after the climb initially? I don't know. And I fear that if they go with Roglic, they might get beaten by Hater. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if Hader can withstand, and he said he's climbing well, I think there's an easy option here, and as you know, Jumbo don't really care about the stages too much. I think the easy option here ahead of the Tour is to have Roglic give Wout a lead out with Laporte, and that's good for morale. It's repayment for Paris-Nice Stage 8. It gives Wout an opportunity after missing out today, and even if Hayter does win, Roglic has sacrificed nothing really for him because Roglic just here for GC and he's got a 11k, 12k, 9.5% climb coming up. So I think that's what I would do if I was them. I would let Ineos take it up because Wout is quicker than Hayter. We saw again today, dusted him in the sprint, and then have Roglic and Laporte give Wout a lead. I mean, maybe you don't even need to do that. Maybe Laporte can Laporte withstand this?
Hmm.
Depends how it's paced, obviously.
Exactly. I think it depends on the tempo. If it's like properly hard pace, I don't actually see Laporte making it to the final of this climb to actually do the lead out personally. But he could prove me wrong, to be honest. But on the other hand,
Oh,
when you like,
Benoit's here. He should be able to do a lead out, right?
yeah, true. But what if you consider this an opportunity to try and like go for longer than just a sprint with Primoz, and you like try and do a 1-2 where Van Aert is a sprinty option, and Roglic tries to like get away in that sense. A bit of a reverse lead out by Roglic and trying to go gain some time as a consequence on the steeper section of the climb? Or is it not steep enough for it?
That's the other option. If you want to be super aggressive, you attack with Roglic before that last kilometer. He goes solo, and it's a flat section, and then Ineos could be out of domestiques. Bahrain will be riding for turns. There's Kelderman for Bora. There are punchy riders here. Jorgensen for Movistar.
Johannesson?
So is Johannesson here?
I think they were both here.
He is. Yeah, he's fast
yeah.
too. Pains me to say it. So yeah, that's another option is you have Roglic go and then Wout sits in the wheels while other riders bring Roglic back on that flat section. Or even Benoit. I think maybe you send Benoit if you don't want to, that's a bit risky to send Roglic. So, or Jonas, like fuck, a few options. I'm trying to look through for McNulty. Do not count out McNulty. He came third in an uphill sprint against Aaron Baru and Colbrelli in the Dauphiné last year. He should be good on this sort of finish. Ayuso is very fast as well. We saw on La Molina in the finish. Benjamin Thomas probably a bit hard for him. I think the problem is, Benji, if you don't pace, then you'll have guys like Barguil, Lafay, Guerrero, all these guys attacking, and then that's going to be difficult to bring back on the last K. So Ineos and Jumbo should line it out if I was
Yeah.
them. Any dark horses? Some really dark horses.
Ooh. Perhaps an Honore, but I feel like he hasn't gotten to the level that I expected from him at the start of the season yet, because he had quite some trouble going into the classic season. I think injury or COVID, one of the two. And we've seen him get gradually better now recently, but he's not there yet for me to really come and do something on a finish like this already. But ah, a real outsider? I don't know, man. Like, what's up with do you think this is too difficult for like a Sean Quinn?
He climbs pretty well. The problem is that it sort of finishes uphill, but not too much. I mean, EF will surely be trying something. I'm trying to also look Baggioli, of course, I would pick every day of the week, except he's had a few injury issues. If he was in his Cullera form in the Vuelta, I would put him down as like second, third favorite.
Yeah.
But he just isn't there right now. Simon Clark, I will be having a little nibble on top three if I can. I think there might be some good odds. And Clark was active yesterday, just like Benji said. Aure was active yesterday, so that's a bit of a tell for who has some decent legs. But we haven't mentioned Dylan Turns, the winner of Flesh and strongest in Liège. Like Bahrain, really, they got Caruso, Haig, Sanchez, Hauser. They got a good team as well for that last climb. No?
I don't believe in turns is like sprint on a 1% section.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It doesn't finish really uphill. Like, you're right. That Flesh was, yeah, it's like a 30-second sprint he has, not a 10-second. As we even saw in that Romandy finish.
I think that I'm going to go for that outsider pick, actually. I'm going to go for Sean Quinn on this one for my pick, because if I'm going back to his history, there was a stage at Tour of the Alps, Kalsam Grosglockner, which was the one where that Lopez ended up winning, where he caught Pinot in the end. But in the group behind, Sean Quinn was getting third, and it's like a 13-kilometer climb, but the end was rather flat compared to the start of the climb. So I think if he can get like third in the sprint in that group, he can get over this climb and sprint with the best.
I'm praying that Wilco takes his first World Tour win. Wilco, high key, low key, to quote LeBron, quite fast, actually, as we saw in the first Budapest stage in the Giro. But that's all from us today. The women's tour had a late finish because of first medical reasons, and then the safety of the finish. So we'll be covering that tomorrow when it finished. Well, it's finished after we started recording, and we'll recap that. But we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thanks to Zwift, as always, our show partner. We'll see you with the recap of stage 3 tomorrow. Probably be a break after all that discussion. Ciao.